Hi, guys. We apologize about the technical difficulties, but we are back. Good evening, good evening, everybody. I am Shadana, and we are back with another episode of Chit Chat Podcast, where we chat all things women. And today, look, that devil thought he was going to steal this episode, but not. It ain't happening. Thank you to my daughter, who my um little producer behind the scenes. She got things back up and working quickly. So thank you, Jada, for that. But we are talking today about women in voting. It's a crucial time in our voting and election history right now, and I think it's a great time to have an engaging conversation on what we see might be a pivotal point in American history. And so we want to have that engaging conversation here first on Chit Chat Podcast. So check in, guys. I know that we kind of started late with our technical difficulties. Look, I don't already poured me a glass of wine because that login was giving me some issues, some anxiety, so it was making me mad. So here we are back online. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, so it is 5 o'clock here. So let me give a shout out to because my son bought me some new wine when he came home last weekend, and he told me that he wanted me to try out some new wines that he did, that he tried out from a wine tasting or whatever. So this is one that I'm trying to see if y'all can see it. One that he brought home to me. Uh Bagara. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. So if I'm not pronouncing it right, do not come at me for that. But Bagaro Elio Perone, when I tell you this is very nice for you wine drinkers. If you want to try it, it's a California wine, probably from Napa Valley because it tastes very expensive. Nice, sweet tasting wine, very refreshing, and it's much needed right now because, yeah, these technical difficulties was pinching my nerves. But anywho, we are back. We're on scene. We're about to talk about women in voting, which is very important right now because we're in a crucial time with a big election coming up. What about 2.5, 3 months away, 3 months away from voting. So election November 5th of this year. So women play a very vital role in elections every time we have election, whether it's local, state, or nationally. Women play a vital role in that. When you look at the number of women when it comes to registration and women voting, wow, it just outnumbers men in voting. So, women, yeah, I need you to tune in. I need you to be chiming in. I need you to be checking in today. I mean, let's talk about it. Are you guys registered to vote? That's the first important question. Are you a registered voter? This election, November 5th, 2024, is too important for you not to be registered. So first, let's talk about, are you a registered voter? If you're not, go to voter.gov. You can get registered to vote in your local state area, wherever you're located at. Get registered quickly. It When I tell you this is an important time. This is an important election. There's so much, at stake for this election. So we need. I mean, it's a pivotal time for women to be voting and making sure that their voice is heard, their their voice is known and made with their voting being done at the polls this year. So let's show up in droves. Let me tell you, when I'm not doing any endorsements, so let me go ahead and put that disclaimer out there. I'm not doing any endorsements of any candidate. However, I do open the open conversation of people chiming in on what they're going for when they're making their decision and making their choices for this upcoming election. Because when we're talking about women rights, when we're talking about women rights at voting, a lot is at stake. right now. Um, there's what's pivotal right now is Roe versus Wade was overturned, so it's driving women to turn out in numbers of being registered voters. Even Gen Z voting registration has tripled because those things matter even to our Gen Z people, our young people. It matters. Those things matter to those young folks. And so, and not only just with women, but with our young people as well, male and female, those things matter. But today our topic is about women because women make important, they are important people when it comes to the elections and voting and the outcome of election and voting. And if you don't think so, trust me, when you see the end of 2024, this 2024 election, your mind will be changed. Because if you have not seen the movement that has taken place with a lot of women turning up and doing movements in registration, in organization of different things, of trying to pull people in polls, trying to get people registered, uh, campaigning, doing all these things, whether for their candidate or for women rights, educating people on what's at stake or whatever. If you do not think that women play a vital role in elections at any given time, whether it's local, state, or national, you are highly mistaken. You are highly mistaken. So who we got checking in? Hey, Kim. Hey, that's one of my babies. Hey, Miss Gibson. There are so many not even registered. That is sad. Look, I'm hoping that this podcast today, if you're sitting idle on the sideline and you have not registered, or you're sitting there thinking, I don't know who to vote for, I'm still undecided. Let me tell you something. Especially if you're a woman, you need to get out there and educate yourself. I'm not trying to tell you to vote one way or the other, but you need to get out there and educate yourself, because this vote not only affects us, but it affects our children and it affects our children's children. So what is at stake right now not only affects me, it affects my legacy. It affects my kids and my kids' kids that's coming behind me. So I need to make sure that not only am I educated and my voting rights and what I'm voting for and what I'm making my choices on, that my family is as well. So you guys got to get out there and make educated, informed decisions. So it's not about, sometimes you got to put party aside and you got to say what is important to me, what is important to my family, what's important to this household. A lot of time, and it changes. Sometimes it changes, for years, different years or whatever, and that's okay. If it changes for you, that's fine. Nobody's judging anybody. However, I will pass judgment on somebody who doesn't make a vote and sit there and make complaints and say things or whatever when you didn't make an effort or cast a vote at all. It's too important for us. Do y'all know that women have not always had the right to vote? Women got the right to vote in 1920. August 26, 1920 is when women was afforded the right to vote by the 19th Amendment. And that wasn't even all women at the time. At that time, that wasn't even all women. That was just some women. The Black women, based, from 1920, they had to fight from 1920 all the way to 1965, with civil rights acts to get the right to vote, in 1965. They didn't grant that right to vote to 1965. Years later, after the 1920 19th Amendment for the rights for women to vote was passed, Black women didn't have that right to vote. So that's why I have no idea why some people are sitting idle or saying, I'm just not going to vote this election, or I'm just going to sit at the side, or I'm not going to do it. It's too important. It's too important. If it was easy for things like Roe versus Wade to be overturned, what other things did you think can happen? Laws and things are established at the level of Congress. So when we're electing people, when we're electing presidential nominees, when we're electing, you know, senators and congressmen to those positions, it's important that we understand who we're electing and why we're electing those people, because they're supposed to be working for us. And when I say working for us, they're supposed to be working for the people of their state in Congress, people for their state and their jurisdiction. And if they're not working for you, you need to move them out the way. You need to reassign somebody else if they're not working for you. It's too important. It is way too important. Our voice is too important. When we show up, and I'm not talking about just everybody, I'm talking about women. When women show up at the polls, we have a voice, and that voice does not go unheard. So if you think that women do not have a voice when it comes to elections, when it comes to making it look at the number of women politicians that have like increased over the years, you know, and then an opportunity now to even have the first ever female president. So you got to look at the opportunities that women have progressed over the years, and those rights have fought so they can have those opportunities. Those haven't always been there. So we can't sit idle, ladies. We can't continue to sit idle. We got to lead by example, because we're already leading when it comes to like when it comes to the polls. Let me tell you what when the 19th Amendment was passed, for women to be ordered to have the right to vote, people still did not want to ratify that. There were people still arguing that women did not want to vote. They need to stay home and take care of the children and the household. It said that women did not have the right to vote, and they wasn't updated on politics. Some even argued that women lack the expertise or the mental capacity to offer a useful opinion about political views. That was back in like 1920 when these people were making these decisions about ratifying the amendment to make it eligible for women to vote. Now you think there's some people that still think like that. That was in 1920, and we are like 2024, and there's some people that still think like that from 1920, that women don't have a useful opinion about political issues. You know, they should be worried about taking care of the home and children. You know, they lack the expertise, all this kind of stuff. And I beg to differ. I say that there are so many women who have paved the way. There are so many women who have fought, who have walked, who have, you know, campaigned, who have, you know, blood, sweat, and tears for us to have this right. So I dare some of these people to sit aside and say, I'm not going to vote or whatever, because I'm undecided. It's time for you to decide, sis. It's time for you to make a decision today or next week or whatever. And if you haven't registered to vote, it's time for you to register to vote so you can make that decision, because it's too important. I need y'all chiming in. Come on, let's chime in and chat about this. I need y'all chiming in today because this is too important to talk about. And those of you who don't have voter registration or don't have the means to find out about in your area, vote.gov. I mean, that's a national voting registration. You can be able to pull up your area locally to find out what your polling area is, what your voting registration office is, where's your polling area, all that. It provides all that information. So there's no excuse, people. There's no excuse. And I mean, if you don't know your, voter registration office or whatever locally, it's no excuse. Vote.com, vote.org. Vote.gov. Vote.gov will provide you all that information so you guys can become an informed and educated voter and get registered to vote. So, like I said, 1920 gave us the first right of women's rights to vote. But it wasn't until 1965 that Black women was afforded the right to vote through the Civil Rights Act. Um, so there's a lot at stake right now. And when we look at the gender roles in registration and voting, women outnumber men in registration in voting. When polls are done showing gender roles in voting for elections, women outnumber men in voting, in registration, in everything. So it's highly important. Jade, I need you to pull up that stat report. So this is a voter registration by gender. It's kind of small, but women are registered in the United States at higher rates than men, and like 10 million more. That's a lot. It's typically 10 million more than the registered number of men. That's crazy. And then if you look at, I mean, I know it's kind of hard to see, but if you look at the bottom reporting of registered voters, the dark color purple and the gray represent the men and the purple represent the women. But look how the women outnumber the men in every year. That's reporting. That's not one year that men outnumber the women when it comes to registration or when it comes to voting. And I don't see it happening anytime soon either. That's why it's important. And you think they won't ever try to cut the rights of women and women voting rights? If they can cut that 10 million more than men register voting, don't you think they will? It would be easy. Look, we can cut that number right there because we can cut the rights of the women right there. If we cut the rights of women, then we cut that 10 million right there. We can't let them do that. We got to increase the numbers. We got to let them know it's way too important for us. If you sit idle and say nothing, you give them an opportunity. You give them an opportunity to work behind the scenes to do these kind of things. We can't do that. We can't do that. It's way too important. It's way too important. And I think about all the years when like even in the 1800s, you had people like Susan B. Anthony that was always working behind the scene for women's rights, and even put herself in a voting right for president during that time when she knew that she wasn't even eligible, but she had the boldness to do it because she knew she was qualified and she was eligible. You know, in her mind, she was qualified and well capable of. But you know, they fined her or whatever. She refused to pay it because she was like, you know, in her mind, she was eligible. I'm eligible for this. So she went on and kept fighting for the rights of everybody, trying to women trying to have the same rights that she was going after, you know. So we can't let that be given up by those who think that, you know, everything is women don't have rights, they don't have a voice, you know, they're less of value. We can't sit aside women. We got to keep moving. Okay, and then it says women have also voted at higher rates than men among Hispanics as well as Asian Americans and of course African Americans. So even in Asian Americans, Hispanics, and African Americans, women outnumber the men in voter registration, which I'm not surprised with that either. But, you know, men, if you don't like it, y'all get y'all voter registration up because the women ain't stopping. Yeah, we're not stopping. We're not stopping. And so when you talk about the impact of the role of women, so I know that people have been watching the news and been seeing the things that are happening. This movement are happening. Women are getting active, activating organizations. They're creating a whole movement. And if you haven't seen it, you haven't heard it. Trust me, you will. The most recent movement has been um, the other like a few days ago. They had a movement called Karens, Karens for Kamala, and over 100,000 women, and this was white women. I ain't talking about black women. This was 100,000 white women got on a Zoom call to show up in support of this candidate. Y'all, I'm telling you, women are a force to be reckoned with. If you do not believe me, what? Look at this. I ain't talking about just. This is white women. I ain't talking about the black women who don't create organizations and movements and groups and sororities and all that kind of stuff. I'm telling you, there's movements that are happening right now behind the scenes. Women are actively moving. And if men who are still stuck back in the 1920s, who think that women don't have no role in politics, women can't make, expertise or informed decision when it comes to politics and all that kind of stuff, men who are still thinking like this, oblivious to these kind of calls right here. 100,000 women. Yeah. They're gonna have to wake up real soon, because look, these women ain't playing. Women have struggled to gain their right to cast ballots and have their voice heard in the political arena. Women have struggled for women voting over a term called suffrage. That's what they used back in the day. There's been a significant increase in women registration in voting in this upcoming national election for November, in large part because of the Supreme Court decision to strike down the Roe versus Wade abortion rights policy and state legislation, quickly implementing laws to limit, if not end, a woman's right on who gets to represent them in the House of Representatives and the Senate. It is important, however, to stress that women and voting has not been a simple and easy process in our country. Women have struggled to gain their right to cast ballots and have their voice heard in the political arena. The story of women and voting rights starts back, like I said, back in the 1800s. We talk about Susan B. Anthony. It starts back there. So when first women's rights convention was held back in the 1800s, you got people like Susan B. Anthony, you got people like Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who was making a voice, setting up conventions, having conventions, setting up participants, making declarations, demanding women to be given a list of rights, including the rights to suffrage. All these efforts started a movement that created the 19th Amendment to be passed in 1920, and then continually with the Civil Rights Act for the Black women to be added the rights to vote in 1965. One of the most important significant developments in the struggle to break down the barriers to full and equal participation was when the first female elected to the Congress in Montana was the first state to allow women to run for the national office. Her name was Jeannette Rankin. She served in 1917 to 1919, and again in 1941 and 1942. After the years of struggle to overcome resistance to women's suffrage, the 19th Amendment was passed, and then again in 1965 for Black women to afford the right to vote. Today, women are increasingly playing a major role in the government of the United States at all levels of public responsibility. Gaining the vote was a struggle, but a struggle that was changed that has changed the character and the quality of our democracy with one vote at a time by each woman. I'm telling you, women are making their voice known. If these women back in the 1800s and the 1920s was making their voice known and creating a movement then that has continued, and this movement has picked up, have re-energized in 2024, I think we ain't seen nothing yet, because Gen Z got something to say as well. I really think they have something to say. And so, this next generation of energized kids and young people will definitely have a voice. And I can't wait to see how that would energize this election, and how it would energize the outcome of this election. So I need you guys to be active participants in voting. It's too important. We got a lot at stake for this election. I'm not trying to persuade you to vote one way or the other, but I do need you to know how important it is to vote. I gave you vote.gov as a website for you can get registered to vote. Another one is vote411.org. That website also you can find your polling place there as well. You can pull up your ballot there to see in your area who's all on your ballot list, from local all the way up to national. You can register to vote there, and they also provide other resources that's available as well. And I wanted to talk about another women's group that that is a league that has been in for over like 100 years. It's a nonprofit. Jada, if you can pull that one up. Yes, a League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters is a nonprofit, a nonpartisan organization that is that sets up empowering voters, defending our democracy. They educate, have political rallies. They have campaign information, organization information. If you like to volunteer for things within your area, campaign information within your area based off your party or whatever, they have that information that you can take action and do. If you would like to donate to this organization, or donate to some league of or some party for some, they're there to assist with that. Just a great organization. They've been established for over 100 years, still active, still empowering, still helping women get the things that they need, educating people, providing the support, the motivation necessary to keep women working, keep women active, keep women in the know of what they need to stay active in the move and in the movement for women and the voting rights and women's rights. So if you are interested in something like that, that organization is nonpartisan, so it's not about party or anything with that. So if you're interested in that, that'll be a great organization that you can reach out to, find out information based off your area, and see what they have set up for your area so that you can participate in. I can't stress enough how important it is. Even if you're only participating in voting this year, as long as you're voting, that's fine. If you can do a little bit more, if you can do some, calls, if you can do some donations, whatever the case may be, participate in some of those things, because when you get active in a campaign or get active in participating in the work of helping something or someone get elected, you appreciate the work, you appreciate the effort so much more. Um, I remember working locally at the local government level in my hometown back in Georgia, working with Commissioner. She's Howard now. She got married, but Shanita, she was my son's mentor for the local government there, city council commissioner. So I remember when she was going for reelection, I got involved. I wanted to get involved, so I got involved. She did community engagement stuff. She would host things like fish fry and meet her people in her district, and answer questions they might have, and just out there talking to people, engaging with her people, and being a part of that and working those areas with her, holding up signs and doing whatever that I could to assist and help. And at the end of everything, to see her reelected and have that victory, and knowing that you sowed seeds and helping and putting work and time and effort in that, it's a fulfilling moment. And of course, and it was a female, it was a woman. You want to see that, supporting our women in politics and doing those things that creates a voice for not only just for her, but for other women that was in her district and in her county as well. So we need to stay active, guys. Vote.gov is one site. Vote411.org is the other site. Make sure you guys are looking up these websites, participating, getting involved, learning what's important in your area, even if it's local, even if it's local or state level. Find out, who your candidates are. Get educated on those as well. Everybody always get concerned about the national level elections, when it comes to like president and all that kind of stuff. But our local and state levels are just as important, guys. It's just as important, and sometimes even more important. It's more important when we elect those local officials or the local and state officials. So, get active, knowing who those people are. Do your research and your homework on those people as well. Make informed and educated decisions on those people as well. But do not sit idle and sit on the sideline. This is not the year to do it. This is not the election to do it. So I encourage you, I implore you to get out there, get to work, understand what you're doing, understand where you're going, who you're voting for, why you're voting, why it's important that you vote in the way that you're voting or whatever, and what's at stake. We got to understand what's at stake. People are just voting. I'm voting this because I'm this is my party, so that's what I'm voting for. Well, sometimes party is not always the policy. And sometimes you have to stray away from party when it doesn't line up, and when it's going to affect you or your family, and then your family behind you. When I think about my children and my children's children, when I think about my grandkids, how my grandkids be affected, it makes me mad. Like, it literally makes me mad. Like, I get mad about that because they're not even here yet. And so I'm their voice right now. So when I'm their voice right now, I got to make the decisions I make now, and how I vote and what I do in voting and who I vote for, whatever. It affects them. So I need to make informed decision, educated decisions now, so that my grandchildren are not affected about stupid stuff later in years because I didn't make an educated or informed decision. So we got to be very, very, educated when it comes to that, because we're hurting ourselves when we don't. And we can't allow ourselves to go backwards. We got to continue to progress and go forward, especially as women. We're in a progressive movement. We got to continue to move forward. We're not trying to go backwards. We come too far to go backwards. We got to be progressive women. So we got to continue to move forward. We got to continue to improve. We got to continue to motivate. We got to continue to encourage. We got to continue to support. We got to continue to do those things to say when we have people that say that we're not smart enough to make educated and informed decisions, or we're not smart enough to do such and such and such and such. We got to prove them wrong. And how we prove them wrong is we show up at those polls, at the local, at the state, and at the national level, and we make our voice be known. So, so if I pulled and plugged at you today, because you're one of those people that say, "Look, this is not a year I'm gonna vote. This is not a year that you can't vote. Sorry, this is just not the year. You got to. So you got to make a decision, boo. Quick. You got to make a decision. So time is running out. Look, I got to sip some wine. Time is running out. We don't have time. We don't have time to waste. It's time to, if you haven't decided, it's time to make a decision. And it's time to make that informed decision today, because look, time is of the essence. We're running out of time. The patience is definitely running out. You see the things that are happening on a daily basis. So just know that this platform allow you to make your decisions and the things that you decide on when it comes to election, because we're going to talk more about the election as the election is upcoming. This won't be the last time we discuss and talk about election stuff, because we're going to have some of our local politicians come on and kind of pluck at you guys and encourage you guys to get out there and vote and do some things and all that. So they'll be on to encourage you guys to do those things. So this won't be the last time we talk about the election, because it's too important. It's way too important. So but today I just want to emphasize the importance of women in voting, and why your vital role being registered as a registered voter, not only just in this election, but in every election, is so important. So let's continue to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. Vote.gov and vote411.org are resources available that will get you registered to vote, will tell you your polling places, will give you your ballot information if you need. So there's no excuses. We have no excuses. So let's get to work. Let's get to work. Let's do the work that we have been known to do, that our those before us have done, and let's pick up. The torch has been passed. Let's pick up where they've left off and continue the movement and continue to be progressive, because there's so much work to do. We've come a long way, but there's still so much work to do. So I encourage you guys to get active and get active fast. If you got family members who are not registered to vote, get their butts registered to vote. Get them. Look, my kids are. When I tell you they are excited, they are ready. Like this Gen Z, like I'm telling you, I think Gen Z is going to be a big outcome in this election, because this Gen Z has been electrifying in registration. If you haven't checked the status, check the status. Not only for women voting, registration have increased for this election, but the Gen Z age has increased. These young folks ain't playing around. They are ready to make a choice and to let their voice be heard. And so I'm all for it. I'm all for it. So when my kids are like, they can't wait, they're excited or whatever, they're getting educated on who they voting for, why they voting for that person, and all this kind of stuff. And they even pull out information educating me on stuff. They tell me stuff, like, Mom, you seen this and this and this and this, and informing me on stuff. So I try to stay out of a whole lot of it, because I'm in a different job now that requires me to. But but I still try to make sure that I provide information that's necessary when asked. When asked, I provide necessary information when asked. But but yeah, we got to make our voice known, ladies. Women, we're way too important. We're way too vital. Not just this election, but any election. But this election, especially, we have to get moving. We have to get motivated. If you got a girlfriend, best friend, sister, aunt, cousin, whoever, and they haven't, before y'all go to happy hour and have y'all a little drink, make sure she registered to vote. Before y'all go on y'all little girls trip or whatever, make sure she registered to vote. We can do all these other things before y'all go on y'all little shopping trip. Make sure she's registered to vote. Seriously. I mean, I cannot express that enough. Make sure she's registered to vote. But that is all I have for this Sunday, guys. I appreciate you guys checking in every Sunday. We are hosting interviews for a chance to be a host on Chit Chat Podcast for our upcoming relaunch of Chit Chat Podcast in October. So we will have hosting interviews in August, 2 days in August. So look out for those dates. It'll be posted on our Instagram, on YouTube, and also on Facebook. So if you're interested and think you have what it takes to be a host for a podcast and you're engaging and have that energy, look, try out. Come interview for it or whatever. You never know if you'll get selected or whatever. We plan to do a relaunch of Chit Chat Podcast in October at our 1-year mark. So we're almost at our 1-year mark. So we plan to do a relaunch. I'm super excited about that. You guys will hear more about that after we do the interviews for the host interviews. But yeah, it's gonna be some new things coming, and I'm pretty excited. So be on the lookout for the things to come for Chit Chat Podcast. So if there's nothing else, guys, I'm trying to make sure I caught all the comments that came in. I appreciate you guys checking in. If you have not subscribed to Chit Chat Podcast, you can do so on YouTube. We are on YouTube. And if you're on Instagram, follow us on Instagram. We are at Chit Chat Pod on Instagram, but on YouTube, you can subscribe to us. So that way you don't miss an episode. And if you do miss an episode, you can go back and watch the video. We do Facebook Live. So if you're in our Facebook chat group, you'll always get it on the Facebook Live, or on my page. You'll be able to see it from my page. But I appreciate you guys checking in every week. I appreciate all of those who are very supportive of us and the things to come for Chit Chat Podcast. We look forward to showcasing what's new and on the horizon. So look out for that. Thank you guys again. We will see you guys next week. Thank you again for chatting with us, where we chat all things women. See you guys later. Bye.